It's just J-Mike.
Hey, Kori.
Hey, Nefi.
Have you noticed that since we've been on our growth journey, that a lot of our relationships in our lives has been changing?
I would definitely have to agree with that statement. Yes.
And you know what's one of the relationships that I feel that I'm more excited about, and I want to see it grow, and knowing that it could become something so beautiful, more beautiful than what it is,
What?
is our relationship with our mothers.
Ooh, yes. Let's talk about that. Welcome back to another episode of, what did I say earlier? Todo menos la perfección podcast. Everything but perfect.
There you go.
And we're going to start off with another chit chat challenge because that's what we do here. We like to talk. This week's chit chat challenge is, which one of your parents are you most like?
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that one because I feel that we do get attributes from each of them, physical and even like per your personality traits. So that's an interesting one.
I mean, I didn't have a daddy, so I'd like to think that I'm just like my mom. But yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into our...
Actually, before we get into, I really want to say this because I think it's like something so totally super cool and awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I want to congratulate you as well as the beautiful country of Guatemala. If we have any listeners in Guatemala, which I know we have Guatemalan listeners, but I just want to congratulate Guatemala for winning their first gold Olympic medal.
Hey, that's true.
It was historic. It was obviously done by a woman because, obvio. But it was in shooting.
Mm.
And just a quick story about this. Forgot her name. Her last name is Ruano. Just happens to be my brother's last name. But she, at a younger age, I don't know how old she is now, but she was younger. And she was training in gymnastics, right, to qualify, because that's obviously one of the biggest ones in the Olympics. And during her training, she got injured and she fractured her spine. And so the doctors were like, girl, you better start thinking about something else because it ain't going to be gymnastics.
Oh.
And apparently he suggested, if you still want to continue and, if you want to make the Olympics someday, you're going to have to do a sport that does not require you to go crazy with your back. And so he said, maybe you can try shooting. And she did. And she won.
And she won the gold medal. And her name is Adriana Ruano.
Ruano. There you go. So congratulations, Mrs. or Miss Ruano. You made Guatemala proud and all the women and Latinos proud.
Yes. And they also won a bronze in that same competition as well.
Yes. 2 medals for Guatemala. So
who run this world?
Girls.
You actually got it.
Yes. So anyways, congratulations to everybody and to todos los guatemaltecos. I love them. I love me, a Guatemalteco in specific. So that's that.
All right. Well, let's get into our topic for today.
Yes.
Which it talks about our relationship with our mothers, and I feel kind of like what we were talking about earlier, how we've been, growing and kind of learning through our own experience, through our own healing journey. And, one of the things that I feel that we've done a lot is reflect about our parenting. Just a few episodes ago, we had our son on the episode with myself, and we talk about like relationships like that. But then I think now that we're parents and we're kind of like older and more wiser, definitely, you look at things and you see a different perspective of our parents, what they were going through while they're raising us.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that that I want to touch about is kind of like for us is like, we talk about healing, and I feel that we're doing that. We are healing ourselves and things like that, but our parents maybe didn't have the opportunity to do the type of work that we're doing now.
Absolutely.
So it does change the way you think of, at least for us, how we think of our parents when they're raising us at a younger age as well.
Yeah. It's and I just kind of want to speak on behalf of the mothers, because I think it's a very different perspective than what you have as a father. But it wasn't until I became a mother that I understood a lot of the things that my mom did and that a lot of women do for their children. And do you know how special that is?
Mm-hmm.
Because, as a younger girl, I didn't understand some of the things that my parents, my mom would tell me the reasons why. I'd be like, ugh, right?
Mm.
But when I had a child of my own, I was like, oh, damn, it just clicks. And you see it through a different lens. And then now that there's been a lot of growth and healing, you see it through an even bigger lens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of things are magnified, and you can kind of zoom in and focus on certain aspects of your relationship. And it allows you to, fix, heal, and, create new memories, new experiences, and continue to build that relationship.
And I think one of the biggest things that it also helps, and something that we talk a lot about, is the communication part of it. I feel that it's funny because we kind of you kind of mentioned this a conversation we had earlier about that. I remember recently I saw a graph, and it showed about how over time, how much time you spent with different things, how much time you spent with your spouse, with your kids, with, at work, all this stuff. And one of the slides was the time you spent with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
And, at a young age, it's the highest, right? Obviously you're born, you depend on them and stuff like that. And as you grow older, unfortunately that time and that graph gets smaller and smaller, so I think for us, I feel that's one of the things that we want to, challenge and put it out there for our listeners to do, is to have that communication with the parents, because they're still there. We understand that life goes on and a lot happens. And if you are fortunate enough to have your parents around, build on that and have those conversations, because it's so rewarding. And I feel that we've kind of been going through that more now than we did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that helps and that we've been doing is talking. And it sounds so simple, but it is so powerful when you do speak, and not just talk to talk or anything, but really have deep conversations with our parents. And I would say having conversations that we've never had before in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think let's dive a little bit deeper into this, and I'll share an experience of mine, and then you can share one with your mom. But do you want to go first?
No, you could go. No, go.
So I was born into this world. Just kidding. I think I've mentioned this before, but I was born in El Salvador. And like I mentioned earlier, I didn't have a daddy. So my mom was a single mom when I was born. And the conditions that the country was in and that my family was in weren't ideal to raise a child, at least in the eyes of my mother. And so when I was 18 months old, she immigrated to the United States. And so she had to make that decision to either bring me with her or leave me. Either one is horrible, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
But because there was so uncertainty in this journey, right, that a lot of immigrants take, she was like, no, let me, at least if something happens to me, at least you're with family. Mm-hmm. And so she left me with my grandparents, and she came here. And just recently I found out, again, through conversations, right, because we're building on these communications, that her plan was, I'm going to come to the United States, work 6 months, and then come back. And I'll have enough money to buy my daughter a house, and we can then, start our life there.
Mm-hmm.
Those 6 months turned into about 5 years. And so I grew up that whole time without my mom. That's not to say she wasn't in my life, because she was, through phone conversations and pictures and letters. But again, because of the, being undocumented, you can't travel. And so I didn't have that role model, like the actual mom. And that created this thing in me where I could easily detach from things, because I got detached from my mom. And we had, in our previous episode, we talked about attachments and how the second you're born, that umbilical cord is cut, but you still need your mom, right? And in my instance, like, I had my mom for the first year and a half of my life, and then she was gone. And it wasn't until I was 5 years old that I saw her again. And, you try to connect again. And a lot of times we hear in movies or just statements, it's like, you can't make up for time lost. And that is so true. And has never been a truer statement. And so even though I was a child and at 5 years old, you can still obviously make so many memories. Those first 4.5 years or so, we miss them. And they're very crucial to me. And so I grew up with not really being attached to her, or anyone for that matter, because, as a baby, I was attached to her, and then she was gone. And then I was attached to my grandparents and my aunts and cousins, and then they were gone. And so the way that I dealt with it was, I don't need to be attached. It's easier for me to be like, oh, cool, you're here one day, tomorrow you're not. Okay, bye. And that's how I grew up, which maybe as a young child, it's not that important. But when you go into be a teenager, and as you go into adult life, you start realizing, dang, like, I really am like this. And other people, it can affect my relationships with other people. And in my instance, it did affect the relationship with my mom, because I felt, well, I've kind of been on my own for a long time. And, also to throw it in there, I met her again when I was 5. And then I was like 7.5 and 8. I went back to El Salvador for 3 years. So again, that detachment, right? At crucial stages in my life. And when I was 12, I came back. So all my life, that was what was natural to me. So I never felt the need to really tell her things that happened in my life, or, it was never that connection. I know you probably heard like how daughters and mothers, oh my gosh, they're like the bestest of friends. And no, like for me, it wasn't. Like, she was my mom. I respect her and I love her, but that was it. And it comes across as cold. It comes across as you don't care. It comes across as so many things that aren't necessarily true, especially for me, but that's what it was. And so I grew up like that. And so, by the time I was 19, I was out of the house with my family, with my parents. And it was so easy for me. They moved to the Central Valley from the Bay Area. And I still remember my mom was like, well, we have a room here for you for whenever you change your mind. And I was like, the heck? Absolutely not. And I never changed my mind. Eventually, that room that they had, like, they even had a little cable box for me and everything. They were just waiting. And then eventually, obviously didn't happen. They turned it into like an office and stuff like that. But again, my whole life, that's how it was. I never had this strong connection with her where I could like, oh, let me call my mom every day, or like tell her, like, I don't know, like those relationships that you kind of see maybe displayed on TV, or maybe someone that's very close to their mom. Like, I've never had that.
But do you feel that, looking back, do you feel like you missed that, or you wanted that, or did you have any of those type of feelings at that time?
No, because you don't know what you don't know. So I just felt that was natural. Like, it's a natural thing. I don't need to be attached.
So it felt normal to you.
It felt normal to me.
Got
It felt normal not to tell her everything. It's normal to me go and do my own thing, and not talk to her for a couple weeks and stuff like that. And then you start talking or getting to know people, and they're like, what do you mean you don't talk to your mom every day? Like, some people be like, oh, how's your mom? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't talked to her in a while. But what I learned is that she also grew up in that manner. My grandma had a gazillion kids, and so she just got lost in all the mix. And it was easy for her to also detach from a lot of things because she's like, well, again, you don't know what you don't know. You can't miss what you never had.
Uh-huh.
But now, through this journey, this growth and healing that I've embarked on, I was able to realize that, the reason of why I feel detached. And it's not a bad thing. I don't see it as a bad thing. It's just that I also need to kind of balance it out.
Uh-huh.
And what I've been doing is trying to reach out to her more and just talk. I'm an introvert and I don't like small talk. I'm not like, oh, okay, hi, how's the weather? Or what are you doing today? That's not something that I really like, but I'm trying with her so that we build a new level of relationship that we've never had.
Yeah, because you got to start somewhere.
I start somewhere. And a couple of weeks ago, she came to our house because I invited her over because I wanted to share something with her, a project that I'm doing. I wanted her insight, and she was able to give me that. She gave me advice, and we were talking about this project that I wanted to do, and it was perfect. And she was like, I'm here to support you. I know you can do it. And it was, again, and it felt normal. Like it was a normal relationship. So that's why I know that things can change.
Yeah.
But you have to be aware of what you're doing and why.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like in that instance, my relationship has gone so much better.
Nice.
It's easier for me to talk to her, if something happens, like now I really want to reach out to her. She's one of the first people that I want to tell besides you. And it's a different feeling. I feel like I'm starting to get the relationship that maybe I could have had we would have been together my whole life. But I try not to think about that part, like, oh my gosh, what we missed, and try to go back and fix it. It's more of like, I understand why she had to leave, and I thank her and appreciate it, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
So everything works out, but that's in a way how I've been able to work on the relationship with my mom specifically.
What do you think that has contributed to you being able to change, or not change, but like to have those conversations and actually start working on those relationship with your mom? Like what contribute to it?
I think it's just honestly, and not to sound like condescending or anything, it's just pretty much logic and like empathy towards other people. So often we just think about ourselves and like, oh, I was left, like in my instance, oh, my mom left me and I never grew up with her, like, and now I'm affected by it, and now she's the reason why I'm detached. When in reality, what was the reason why these decisions were made? And so I had to kind of think about it. If I was her in the exact same situation, what would I do?
Uh-huh.
And like I started at the beginning, as a mom, it's different because I would do anything for my son, like anything. And I often thought, right when he was around the age that she left, I remember hugging that kid and I was like, like it would break my heart to leave him and not know when I would see him again. See, that's the difference that a lot of people, and not in my case, it's the being undocumented that affected our lives a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's been one of the biggest impacts in my life. But it was that specifically, just being like, okay, what other options did she have? Had she stayed, how would it be? Eventually the country, El Salvador, ended up being one of the worst, most dangerous countries in the world. I lost family members to the gang violence, and it's sometimes scary to think that what would have happened had we stayed there.
Yeah.
And so it's just a little bit of like understanding other people that maybe, they, at that moment in their life, that's all that they could do. Mm-hmm. And that's what you do. Like, you can't go back and be like, she should have never left me. No, like, that's what happened. And this is how we're going to continue, like, moving forward. It's understanding what she had to do, why she did it. And then looking at the outcome and and be like, okay, like it's not that bad. It's not like she made the worst decision of her life.
Yeah.
Did it affect both of us? Absolutely. But so many other things also do.
Yeah. How easy was it for you to kind of like let go of like all that, like the past? Because it's hard, it's a lot that goes into it. It's very, very personable, it could be very emotional. Like how did you work through that of letting go and saying, hey, like I understand? Because it's not easy. I feel like it's not easy.
It's definitely not easy, but also I think, not to toot my own horn, but I have a big heart, and I am very understanding of a lot of things. If the things that I'm not tolerant about are going to be injustices and, like just things like that, of that nature, that are driven by hate and just those bad feelings. But anything else, I feel like we can understand each other, right? And so it just takes time to listen. And so what I had to really do is do a lot of reflection on it and think about it, and you can get hints of it when you listen to their stories. Like my mom says, she was discriminated against because she's dark in a country of Latinos where a lot of people are dark. But because my grandma had blue eyes and a lot of her sisters had, were lighter and had, also like colored eyes, she was looked down as like, you're the ugly child. Many times she was told that. When she had me, they were like, there's no way this is your daughter, because I was light skinned and she's not. And so again, you have to put yourself in the shoes of these people and think about, shoot, like now, like in her case, I felt like all these things were against her, and now she had a little mouth to feed. So it wasn't that far-fetched for her to say, let me try my luck elsewhere. Yeah. Let me try to, at the very least, make some money more than I can make here. And so I had to do a lot of those and listen to those stories and say, wait a minute, like, what would I do? What could I do if that happened to me now? A lot of the times now, I don't think that's ever really happened to me. But it was a lot of like thinking, okay, that's her story. It's a valid and it's a true story. And how can I sit here and judge her?
Yeah.
Right? I can't judge that situation. I wasn't in it. And, there's an instance where we had to kind of deal with something with our son in daycare a long time ago.
Oh.
And what did we do? We were all about it. We took him out. We were like ready to fight. We were ready to go to court. And that's exactly what a parent does. You fight, except that they're different fights. So that's what I had to do a lot of reflection. And quite frankly, once I did that, it was easy. It was easy to understand her pain, her suffering, why she was a certain way, why she's also detached. And then you're like, you know what? We're all kind of like what is it, Alice in Wonderland? We're all a little bit crazy here. So, yeah.
Nice. No, that's cool. And for me, I feel that like I'm just fortunate enough to see it, in the passenger seat and seeing your growth and seeing that relationship. Like it really is very rewarding to see that. And I think I've told you this before, and I'll say it here. Like I feel that seeing you and how you've been changing the relationship with improving your relationship with your mom, that sparked me. And I feel that kind of gave me also the little extra push, because we've been working on ourselves and things like that. And it does get to a point where it's like, okay, like you work on yourself. Okay, what's next, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be spending your entire life, it's all about me. You got to look at other things. And, I went through and I kind of healed some parts of with my father. He had passed away. So it was a, different experience with him. But then I started having this conversation with you, and I was like, you know what? Why don't I heal and have those conversations with my mom when she's still here, right?
Right.
And it's crazy because, like, you think it's like, oh, that's just a no-brainer. But I feel that that's part of the journey. It's whenever you're ready, whenever you feel that that's the next thing for you, that's when it happens, because I feel I couldn't have these type of conversations that I'm having now a year ago, You know, I just couldn't.
Because you had to go through a certain process.
Exactly.
Because it's, to your point, like a lot of us wait, okay, when I'm ready, when the right time is, there's no, you know, and sometimes, unfortunately, we miss it and our parents end up, you know, passing away, or that loved one passes away, and then you're like, damn.
Yeah. And that was a perfect example that clicked on me, you know, because like I mentioned earlier, I saw you do it, like, no, I could do that as well. And I want to do that. So, you know, for me, I want to share this. It's like something that happened more recently, right? And it was very rewarding because it was a conversation that I had with my mom that wasn't really our typical conversation. You know, we talk somewhat often, but it is sometimes like kind of like small talk. Oh, how you been?
Yeah, like the day-to-day things, yeah.
You know, and they're great. You know, it's cool having this conversation. But then I started telling her about a little bit more about like myself, about like the spirituality that I've been going through. And, you know, for me, spirituality, it's more about self, about your own. It's not connected to any religions or anything like that. And it was very, at the beginning, it was a little difficult to have that conversation with my mom because she is religious, you know, and I think you could resonate with that as well.
Absolutely.
But I was like, you know what? Like I felt the need to say it. So I kind of started talking to her. And the cool thing was that, and let me say this before I go into it. It's one of those things that something that I've learned and I've learned and has read and things like that, and I believe in, is that spiritual are starts with yourself, right? And in religion, there's certain parts that is spirituality in religion. So she was kind of pulling some of that stuff and was talking to me about that. And it is about like self and taking care of yourself and things like that. So we connected, you know, even though it was coming from maybe two different spaces, but it was overall the same common goal goal. And it was very rewarding. And then I just remember having the conversation. I was like, man, this I feel like it was fun. It was different. It was like relieved even. You know, I did feel like a relief. And, you know, we talked and, you know, we even like shed some tears, like, because we got very deep in those conversations that we haven't had in the past or ever. And you know, I think a week passed and, you know, we continued talking. And ironically, you know, my sister decided to come over a weekend and she invited my mom. So they came over. And it's something that we have talked about, doing some type of meditation, some type of exercise with our family, right? Of course, it goes back to whenever they're ready, because I feel what we've learned that you could tell somebody something 1,000 times, and if they're not ready to hear it, it doesn't matter. It's just going to go over their head. But when they're ready, they take it and they run with it, right? And I feel that was kind of like what happened this time. So we like, you know what, let's just ask. So both my mom and my sister came, and then we asked them, hey, we want to do a meditation. There's 2 different exercises that we could do. You know, this is kind of what it entails, and we'll get into it later. And at first my sister was like, no, I'm okay. And then my mom was like, yes. She was like, oh, okay, like, all right, cool. And we'll kind of walk through the exercise we did. So you know, it's still kind of warm outside. We went outside. And it started with which one was it? Which one did we start with?
We did like a meditation, just you know, like a regular meditation with a little somatic movements and breath work. And then we went more like a visualization meditation.
And the visualization meditation was I feel that was more powerful than anything. I think one of the exercises in that is really talking about like the fight that you go through every day and how you got to push yourself. And then at the end of it, and I love the song that we put, you kind of just sit there in stillness and you hear this song, and the song that you put, it's very, I can't even explain what it is.
It's very healing. It's very self-healing. It's in that moment of stillness, it's just you and yourself. Loving yourself, appreciating yourself, thanking yourself, anything that, you know, it's just in that moment, it's just you.
And it's in that exercise you mentioned, like if you feel like it, hug yourself, right? And we did, you know, you hug yourself and you just feel that sense of like gratitude and love that just fills your heart. And I know I've done this exercise a few times, and every single time, like I get emotional, and I do feel emotional. I do cry and I let it out, but it's something that it's just my body releasing it. You know, I allow myself to feel it and I just allow it to happen. And during that time, I kind of like look over and I see my mom also like getting emotional, and I'm like, okay, like, you know, obviously there's something there. And, you know, after this, you just kind of wait and you just allow yourself to feel. If you want to continue hugging yourself, you continue for however long you want. And then once you're done, you just kind of talk, right? And I just remember, like, with my mom, we didn't even say anything. Like, she kind of like came to, you know, she was emotional. I just hugged her, and I just felt that genuine like hug from a mom to a child. And at that time, I felt like a child, you know, like it was my mom hugging me as a child, and just having that feeling and going back to it was just it felt like rewarding, you know, and knowing that. And also, like, for my mom to be able to be in that situation, to do that with her adult child, like, was also rewarding, you know. And I feel like we had that connection that was just so amazing, you know. And after that, we started talking, and, you know, and one of the things that she mentioned is, like, you know, is that sometimes she gets emotional with when you think about the past, because the past are not just memories, and you know that you're not going to relive that. But then I told her, I was like, yeah, but the memories are always going to be there. You could always go back to them. But the good thing is that they're always going to be there, but you could continue to create more, you know, going forward. And I feel that that's kind of something that we've been very conscious about with our parents, especially like our moms, is creating those memories with their grandson, because on both sides of the family, our son is the only grandson on both sides. So, you know, really being there and having those memories and creating those. And then at that moment, it just felt good to be able to have that connection with your parents. And that's why, like I said earlier, like, I do challenge everybody out there who's listening to try it, you know, have those conversations with your parents. If you're lucky enough, because I know there is a lot of people that are not lucky enough, but I feel that you could still have those conversations in a meditative state, or even just talking, close your eyes and just speaking to them. Like, I know that they listen and they will take that information and whatever you want to say it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, you know, for those out there that have, you know, maybe I don't say broken, but, you know, not a good relationship maybe at this moment, or never had with their parents for whatever reason. You know, this is not, we're not saying go out there and talk to them and forgive them, or, you know, condone any other behaviors if they're not acceptable to you. But at the very least, try to understand certain, you know, behaviors or things that they did, and try to forgive those, whatever you can. If you can't, then that's fine. If you can't speak to them, if you don't feel that you can, or you don't want to, it might be too hard. Maybe write a letter. You know, you can always, this is my go-to for everything, dedicate a song, because a lot of the like, music connects us, and there's very amazing lyrics out there, in a variety of songs. So that can also be an alternative, you know, to start, even to spark that and say, you know what, Mom, like, can you listen to this? You know what, Dad, I want you to listen to this and tell me what you think. It's not just about sit down right there and I remember when I was 3, you know, blah, 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 right? It's something that could make such a difference, you know. And I know both of us, like you just mentioned, yeah, you've had conversations. I'm working on myself to be able to actually sit down with my parents and ask for forgiveness, because I feel like I've also unintentionally caused pain on them. And so, but it's something, again, I'm not ready just yet. Right. Even though I've done a lot of growth and, you know, of a lot of healing, I'm still not at that point yet, but that doesn't mean that I can't start making little amends here and there and trying to make that overall relationship better.
And the thing is, like, I feel that with these type of journeys, it's like you go through that. You go through and you plant the seeds here and there, and it takes time. You know, I think that's one of the biggest things that we've learned is like the patience. It's not something that's going to happen the next day. You know, manifestation takes time. It's not something that happens instantly, and it doesn't even happen the way you want it. You know? But if you're consciously or intentionally doing those and plant the seeds, it does get easier and easier with time. You know,
So do you see, you do feel that you doing this, you know, getting closer to your mom, especially in this meditation visualization that we did, do you feel that that's kind of brought you closer?
Oh, 100%. Because I do feel that because, and it sounds funny, but just the conversations alone, like they're more rewarding, you know, and I do feel the difference, and it has felt it, because I'll be honest, like I did feel a little disconnected, you know, from my mom for a while. And it's not like anything bad happened. It just, you know, it's just this connection, but now I'm starting to feel that connection coming back. And I just feel that it is stronger, and I see that it's stronger, and that's just the beginning, you know. Like I feel a lot of the stuff right now that we're doing is still in the early stages, and I can only see what the future could hold, you know, and that's what I'm excited about. It's like, hey, let's continue this journey to grow together. Because like kind of like what we talked about in the earlier in the episode is like as we're growing, people around us also grow. You know, like one of the things that I read was that as you grow yourself, the 7 people closest to you will also grow. And sometimes a lot of times that is family, because you are closer to your family. It could be friends, it could be whoever. But I do feel that as we're doing this together, we're starting to notice our family also changing and kind of growing and thinking outside the box, which I think is the biggest thing, because I feel that for the most part, this whole world, this society, we're just in this box. But once you start thinking out the boxes, that's where the real life lies.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that, just never give up, you know. Think that sometimes it's easy for us to come on here and say, yeah, we're growing, we're healing. But like you said, some people around us may not understand that, may not feel the same that we feel. That doesn't mean that we stop for ourselves. You continue doing it for yourself, in hopes that one day maybe that person, whether it's your mom, your brother, your sister, will catch up and say, hey, wait a minute, wait for me. Show me what you know.
Yeah, so, exactly.
But I think we've reached the end of our conversation. We can talk about this all day. We have those, what is it? Like those, you know, like those gamers have it. Was it the Twitch? I'm going to go on Twitch and just game and talk.
Game and talk. Speaking of game, though, you do owe me a rematch on Mario Kart, just saying.
You just want to get whooped again. But anyways, thank you, everyone, for listening. I really hope that you can take something out of this conversation. And welcome to send us a message. We like reading them. We don't get a lot, but we still appreciate the ones we get. So thank you, and until next time. So remember, love is an endless adventure. So cherish your connections and keep this conversation flowing.